Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to GNG. I was going to say LinkedIn Live, but we're live from 3 different other platforms as well. Thank you for tuning in. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Not really like enjoying this little cold weather, but guess it's part of living in Canada. So today we have a very interesting topic, very passionate. I'm very passionate about this topic, and it's to do with asking candidates to do work as part of your recruitment process, because it's happened to me, is that it's happening now, it's happening to many candidates where and in some industries kind of has turned out to become a norm where like salespeople have to do a 90-day action plan on what they're going to achieve in the first 90 days if they join the company. I've even seen IT positions, recently found out about IT positions where companies are asking candidates to read up on a project and do analysis and then present it and submit it to them as pre-assessment for being considered for the role. So very, very, very hot topic, which is happening to many people. Many companies are doing it. So we want to open this discussion on, first of all, is it fair? Is there a right practice to have a part of your recruitment process? And then on the candidate side as well. So we're going to look at the employer side. We're going to look at the candidate side. But normally I do pass the segment off to kick off with Gail. But because this is a topic I'm super passionate about, and I want to put the record straight, is I do not believe this is a fair recruitment process. I don't believe that this is the best practice to any company to implement. Technically speaking, you are asking candidates to do work. It's work. Regardless of you want to see how well they will perform or what would they accomplish in 90 days. Sorry to say this, but when you hire a salesperson, that should be one of the first things they do when they get hired is put their 90-day plan together. Why are we asking candidates to put 90 days plan together? They haven't even got the job. And how many hours of work this is. It's not easy to put a 90-day plan. I've had companies even ask for 6 months plan. What would you do in the first 6 months? And these type of plans can take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to put together. I was having a discussion last week with somebody where they did an overview of the plan, submitted it, and they didn't get selected because they didn't put data, numbers and figures. And I guess another candidate probably did. But how would you even now get data and throw numbers and figures? So here's my viewpoint. I've never ever had this this as a recruitment process. I think it's really bad practice. I've never let my clients do this, like small medium-sized companies. I tell them why not to do it. The biggest reason why you don't want candidates doing this is it's free work. You are making candidates work. The recruitment process is an assessment for you and for the candidate to assess if you guys are right fit for one another, right? Like, can they do the job? Is the company for them? Is the work going to be challenging for them? Can the candidate deliver on the solutions that you're looking for? But when did it become free work? Let's get some free work. Gail? Now I'll give it to you.
So I think one of the problems with it, obviously, is that it's taking advantage of the inherent power dynamic between the employer and the candidate, or the employer and the employee. Because when in the hiring process, the company has something that the candidate wants. They have the role. And this is what I think is one of the hidden losses when it comes to COVID, when it comes to this pandemic, is that 7 months ago in North America, we were in a candidates market. 7 months ago, if you asked a candidate to do this, it was much easier to say, No, thank you. There's other jobs out there, and there's plenty of other jobs out there. And now, because there is greater power dynamic, greater power that lies within the employer, because now there are fewer jobs out there, fewer roles out there, and it's harder to come by. And the companies, unfortunately, then know that the person has fewer options.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons, in my opinion, why we were moving to, in North America, a more humanistic way of leading was because of that power, because of the fact that we were at full employment, people could go where they wanted, and millennials were demanding it. And now the power has shifted, and some companies have taken advantage of that or have continued to take advantage of that. One
Yeah,
of the
right.
things that
It is the power tripping.
is absolutely, because it's saying, hey, we have what you want. You're going to give us hours and hours of time. Well, we don't have to do anything. We're just going to go out about our business while you spend hours of your time to apply for this job.
Yeah.
And it's a disrespectful way of going about things. It's a disrespectful way of treating people. And one of the things that I've also found is that it's also one of the dark sides of employer brand gone wrong. And what I mean by that is that it's often the companies who have the really good employer brands who feel like they can get away with it. Oh, you want to work with us? Well, then you need to do this work. I mean, I have
Power tripping. Again, it's sign up.
it's power trip, absolutely.
Power tripping.
You know, I mean, one of the examples when we were talking to Jen last Thursday, one of the most egregious examples I've ever heard of that I brought up was a friend of mine, a salesperson, who was asked by a very reputable, respected group to do full-on prospecting them and business development for them over the course of a month, because they wanted to see what kind of business development that person could do and then turn over those leads that they bring up to the company. So
And
do a month of full-on work,
free?
bring what for free,
Wow.
bringing the leads to the company with no guarantee that you're going to get the commission on any sales brought in. And they felt comfortable doing that because of the position they were in, because of the fact that they were a very respected, reputable group. And this was a person who was trying to be a part of them. And it turned my stomach when I first heard it. Quite frankly.
1 month? That, like, not even a week, 1 month of free work.
Of full-on prospecting, business development, warming up leads.
Honestly, if I wasn't an entrepreneur right now, and if I didn't do this prospecting myself, I wouldn't even know how much work is involved. But now that I know, like, 1 month prospecting is a lot of work. You got to do a lot of research on potential clients, companies. The research takes a lot of time. Then putting those pitch decks together to why you should hire us or why we're the ideal choice, that, and then going presenting it, having those calls, getting those meetings. That's a lot of work.
Imagine having the calls when you're not actually an employee of the company. So saying, hi, I'm Gil Cohen of HR Superhero, even though I'm not actually an employee of HR Superhero yet, I'm just a candidate at that point.
Yeah, I wonder how did they even start that conversation? I guess they probably said I'm an employee then.
You know what? I don't know. I don't know all of the details of, because I don't know if the salesperson actually went out and actually did it for them, or at least was asked to do it for them. But
I remember when I was a candidate before I jumped full time into my consulting business. One company, not a big company, but one of those growing startup organizations, and it was for a senior level HR role through a recruitment agency, and it was between me and this candidate, and they wanted us to put a 6 month to a year plan for HR because it was their first time hiring HR. They never had HR, and I said no, thank you. I'm not doing it. Why? Like, I did a great presentation in the interview, show them all their gaps and what to fill in, like what do I do? But now you want me to make like, I'm happy to do what I want to do. But if you're going to ask me as a candidate to put a 1 month plan together, first of all, how am I supposed to do that when I don't have I need a lot more information on the organization, each business units, what's your 5-year plan and all that stuff. But just an overview of detailed by months to 6 to year, what would HR look like from today to a year from now? So a complete plan, a complete strategy HR plan. And I said, no, I go, you know how many hours? And the recruiter was kind of disappointed. I go, but that's something you should be communicating to your client, that you shouldn't be asking candidates to do this. You should be asking the right question. And if you can't make a decision without this plan, then you're not even in the position to hire HR if you can't even decide. But to me, I never liked this process. I have openly, I think a few times I talked about this. You are asking candidates to do free work. It's free work, 6 months, 12 months, and asking a salesperson to do prospecting for a whole month. Okay, but are you going to pay me? I hope the salesperson said, no problem, happy to do it. But if I do the prospecting and you end up landing these clients, are you going to give me a commission? But that's a fair deal for that sales role, right? Like, because at the end of the day, you're going to be paying them commission. But why are we doing trial and error? It's pretty much your test. You want to test the candidates. You're making candidates jump through hoops. But what about the candidate? Can they do a test drive with you? Can they do a test drive? Hey, pay me X amount and I only want to work for you a week. I need to see first if you're the right fit. Like, when did it all become, I think you're right, it's a power trip. When companies start asking candidates to do all this work for free because you want to make sure you are hiring the right person, they can do the job, they can get you results. But what about the candidate? Are you taking the time to take them around your organization, get them to meet people so they can get the feel of your organization? So if you're not willing to do that, then why are we asking candidates to do work? But here's the other thing why I don't like this. You made the candidate do this work. You get all this, say it's top 3 candidates, top 2. It's going to be 2 to 3 candidates you're going to ask, right? Because it comes down to decision. Okay, fine. Companies don't make every candidate do this. It's always when it's the top 2 or 3. Now, these people have to do all this work. You got all this work for free and their ideas for free, but only one person gets hired, or sometimes no one gets hired. Oh, we hired someone internally, but you took all these 3 people's, I can bet money on it that these companies took all these people's ideas and recommendations and gave it to the internal person and said, there you go, run with it. So you got consulting work for free. You got ideas for free. You got everything planned out for you for free from 3 different people, and you picked the best things, meshed it together, and gave it to internal candidates. Now, how is that fair, and how is that right for the candidate who put so much time and effort to putting these presentations, these plans together? Because it doesn't take 5 minutes to put not even a 90-day plan together.
But the problem is there's literally no consideration for the candidate's perspective. There's in too many organizations, and it's not just about these plans, but it's about candidate experience in general, that there's very little attention paid to what the candidate experience is all about. It's all about the hiring process. So if you take it down that path, it makes sense why companies ask people to do this. Because, well, what's the best way to know their performance? But by actually doing a role, right? By actually prospecting. There's no better way to know what kind of business development rep they are than by actually asking them to be a business development rep. Mm-hmm. So I get that. So on that point, it makes sense logically. But the problem is that they make the decision entirely with the organizational lens, entirely from their own perspective about this is the data we're trying to collect. And it's the same thing why people end up in 7, 8 interviews, why people end up in interviews with 12-person panels, because it's all about somebody in the company or people in the company thought to themselves, what do we want to find out? Well, we want to find out this information, and we think the easiest way to collect that information is by doing it this way, whether it be asking them to do work, asking them to do a crazy panel with a whole bunch of people in it. It doesn't matter, because nobody thinks about the person on the other end of it. You know, and I know that you love that story of the people who used the numbers to turn it around, saying, "Hey, you would have never been hired if you had had your same stringent requirements," right? That, but the reality is that when we make these decisions as hiring managers, as recruiters, we need to consider there's a person on the other end of it, and
But
the
that's
reality is,
a lot of companies forget that it's a human being on the other side. We forget, companies get so caught up in what they want and what's right for them. How do we make a good hiring decision? But the reality is, you forget to add, well, okay, if we do this, is this fair for the candidate? Is this a fair ask? Is this fair to make the candidate spend 2 to 3 or 5 hours of their time putting these plans together, right? So like, you need to put yourself, and I like what you said, the candidate experience, right? It is a candidate experience. So how you build the candidate experience as a reflection on your employer brand, right? It speaks volumes of who you are as an organization. And to me, I think the basics is never forget that you are also a candidate. Like, you have to build a recruitment process thinking from a candidate's perspective, putting yourself in a candidate's shoes. If you were a candidate, would you do this? How would you feel if the company asked you? We quickly dismiss the candidate. We are so quick to dismiss candidate because our entire focus on, well, we need this, we want this, we want to make sure we hire the right person. I understand how important it is to hire the right person. I get that. I'm HR. I totally understand. I totally understand how important it is to hire the right person from the get-go. But asking candidates to do free work or assigning work for them to come into the next interview to present, it's still work. You're signing work. I don't think it's fair on the candidate. I don't think it's fair that they should be spending their personal time away from their family, friends. It's their personal time. Yes, of course. Like, if you're looking for a job, you have to invest that time in prepping for the interviews and all that stuff. Yes, but to get them to now do extra work, which you're assigning them and saying, hey, before you come to the interview, we need you to do this, and you're going to pitch it. Because some companies even say, hey, you're going to pitch this to us. Here's what we want. And your first 5 or first 10 minutes of the interview is you pitching us your 90-day plan. That's it. Now you're making them do work, and it's not going to be an accurate pitch, but in the end of the day, you're benefiting from it. But how is it fair to the candidate? Like, we are so quick to dismiss the candidate.
the reality is there's only 24 hours in a day, and for each candidate there's generally one of two scenarios. Either they don't have a job and are looking for a job, or they do have a job and they're looking for a job. So let's take the first scenario, which is they don't have a job and are looking for a job. Well, that means that that's 2, 3, 4, 5 hours away from their job search. You're taking them away from being able to find another role, all for the sake of the work that you want them to do. And then if they do have a job right now, well, when do they have time to do this? When do they have time, especially through COVID, where people are working longer days, have more stress, more to take care of?
Yeah.
When does a person have this opportunity to do this extra work? So either way, you're not showing respect to the person. And that's the problem is, you're saying like, use your empathy and think of this other person, but so many companies don't. And some do it consciously, that they just don't care. They have an arrogance and they comfortably, trip on that power. And some of them do it ignorantly and think to themselves,
Yeah.
oh, this is just the way it's done. This is just how a hiring process
Or
is
it's
done.
that thinking, well, too bad. If you want this job, you got to do it. If you don't want this job, then you're not going to do it. Then you're rejected. Simple.
Yeah. There's plenty of
Right?
fish in the sea, especially right now.
It's also same concept where companies, and found a lot of large organizations have this, where you're making the candidate spend 5 to 6 hours at your work interviewing them, and it's not a panel interview. You might as well do a panel. If you're going to make a candidate, because I know a few people, especially my sister, went through this. A lot of the larger organizations do this. You have to meet a few of her interviews where she spent 5+ hours one day meeting 5-6 different people, and a lot of them asked the same question, and she was like, obviously you're a candidate, you're going to go through it, but mentally you're getting frustrated that you're being asked the same question and you're repeating the same answer over and over. You might as well do a panel interview then. You might as well get everybody in the role, in the boardroom, have the candidate sit there and answer all the questions. 5 people.
Or just video them doing the interview once and then show the rest of everybody else.
So
because if it's all the same answer,
it was, these are all the key players. Everybody has to like the candidate to weigh in the decision. But if you have 5 people deciding on, again, forget the 5 people deciding, but how is it now fair to the candidate to spend 5 hours? So let's take the commute. Going to your office, leaving the office, but then 5. So that's the whole day. Depending on where you live, right? Traffic and all that stuff. So 45 minutes to an hour to get there and then get home, right? So that's easily the candidate spends 6-7 hours. They had to take time off from work. But
by the way, I'm also going to call that practice out right now, because the problem with that is you're asking everybody to interview them for their own comfort. You have to get along with everybody. Well, that, you know what that is? That's the conversation we had last Thursday. That's culture fit. Do you make people comfortable? That's it. Beginning and end. Do you make people comfortable? You're not finding out any valid information about whether a person can do the job. But when you're having a person interview around because you want them to get to know everybody and everybody has to like them, that means you're hiring them for a culture fit that doesn't have a name either. You haven't articulated what that culture fit is beyond everybody liking you. And if you're going to continue to hire for everybody liking the person, then you're going to kill your diversity, equity, and inclusion within your organization. You're going to hurt innovation because you're all going to look, think, and act the same. And so that's why, that behavior right there, you really should be, I'm not even kidding, because if you're going to have a panel of 6 people who are all asking the same questions, you might as well just have one person ask the question, and the other 5 can watch it on video afterwards or something, because that person's going to be less comfortable with 6. It's just how we are, sitting in front of a panel interview of 6 people.
But how draining must it be for the candidate to go through this in one day? 5 hours, that's a long time to be meeting 5 different people or 6 different people. Each one of them is taking an hour, almost an hour. How draining is this for the candidate? It's not draining for the individual because each individual is just taking 1 hour of their time. But the candidate is the one candidate that is taking 5 hours. 5 hours.
And they're on the whole time too. Not only that, because you have to be on, you have to be, at your best for 5 hours straight, where none of those people who are interviewing have that same kind of pressure. They don't have to be on for any of the time, really. Right? Yeah. Because they can just comfortably be themselves. They've got the job. right? But when you have to be on in front of all of these people again and again, and you have to re-meet people over and over and over again,
Why
it
not just do a panel interview then?
that's what I say. Do it once, have all of those answers, you see all the answers, and know what you're actually looking for. Because when you're having 5 people ask whatever questions they want to ask, there's no structure to that. You have no idea what you're looking for. It's all completely subjective because
Yeah.
everybody's just interpreting the answers exactly how they want. And guess what? There's nobody else there to validate it. There's nobody else there to say, I know you heard that, but I heard something else. That's one of the good things about panel interviews that I've been on, that I've experienced, that I've trained people to do, is that when you do a panel interview, not every interview should be a panel, but when you do a panel interview, no, absolutely not. But when you do a panel interview, you can validate it. You can say, hey, you know what? I missed one point, or I thought I heard this. And you can verify with somebody else to say, you know what? Let's reduce that subjectivity. Let's get all on the same page.
Yeah, honestly speaking, I like doing panel interviews for manager roles. I don't think every role requires a panel interview, depending on the role. I don't think every role, but it's even as an HR person, I would always, second or third round, I would sit with the hiring manager. I would sit in with the hiring manager. I don't let them do the interview by themselves because, again, like, also sometimes hiring managers forget that there's certain things you shouldn't ask. Right? Even though I make the hiring managers question. But my best practice is, I think there should always be 2 people in a room interviewing because, yeah, like there's that, it's a way to eliminate some kind of bias because there's 2 people are going to think differently, and also what you hear, right? But yeah, it's a good point that having 5 people meet one candidate one-on-one, you're already creating so much bias by doing that. But I feel like all this process goes back to what we talked about, I think a couple months ago, making candidates jump through hoops. You're making candidates jump through hoop. But in your mind, you think it's okay to do it because you are the decision maker. You are the one looking for something. So it's okay to make them jump through hoops. What people forget to understand, companies need to treat candidates just like how you treat your customer. Because this candidate can also be your customer. You don't know that. Depending on what, like, especially if you're in a product industry, you're selling to consumers. But so when you make candidates jump through hoops, I tell every single person, even candidates, the way the company treats you is a sign, and during the interview is how they're going to treat you afterwards. So if they're making you jump through hoops already, they're going to always make you jump through hoops.
Yeah. So for me, I summarize it up with 2 questions. The first question is, when it comes to any kind of candidate experience, is this respectful to the individual? Is this respectful to the person? Because that's just the baseline. We should be demonstrating respect. And then there's the kind of aspirational looking, which is, are we creating a process that can leave the people who don't get the jobs still be fans of the company? Because knowing that that's possible, I think a lot of people don't realize that that's possible, that you can create an experience, a candidate experience, where somebody who doesn't get the job still walks away feeling good and still walks away feeling positively about the organization and speaking positively about the organization. So if you can have those 2 levels of empathy, of that baseline of respect should just be the baseline of, if it's not respectful to a person, we shouldn't be doing it. But then we should be looking at what's possible of, are we creating a process that will make fans even from the people who get rejected? Because the best companies out there, the best candidate experiences out there, leave people who exit that recruiting funnel at all different stages still feeling good about themselves, still feeling positively about the company. So those are the 2 things that I would sum up this topic with.
So I would just sum it up. In the end of the day, you got to put yourself as a candidate. You got to see yourself as a candidate before you build any type of recruitment process. You always want to build it from the candidate's perspective as well, not just your perspective, what you're looking for. You always want to put yourself in the candidate's shoe. Never forget that you're also a candidate. You can be a candidate. You were a candidate. I never forget being a candidate. I never forget being a job seeker. I never forget that because I hated recruitment process. I hate going on interviews. I hated going on interviews. I never liked interviews. That's why I think when I do interviews, I try to make it light and fun. I try to have a conversation instead of grilling candidates with questions. I don't like recruitment process. I don't think interviews is even a good assessment tool for assessing candidates. Because you're right, the bias is the gut feelings. I'm not saying gut's wrong. Your gut's never wrong, but it's
no, your gut can be very wrong. That's the problem. No. I'll call that out right now. I'm going to say that right now. Your gut can be very wrong because
my gut's always right.
No, I'm sorry, but in terms of interviewing, the data that comes in terms of how quickly a person makes a yes or no decision when a candidate comes in terms of bias, in terms of our gut. And only by asking the right questions and knowing what we're looking for, can we find out whether our gut is right. Because guess what? When it comes to hiring,
I meant gut from after asking all the questions.
Oh, yeah. Okay, no, that's right. A different story. Right. But what I mean, the problem is that most people, psychologically, we go by that gut instinct when they walk in the door. The decision is...
You mean by, like, the first impression you get of the
candidate. Yes, and that's what a lot of hiring managers go by. And it's scary and it's sad, but that's the reality.
I meant after the interview, like I do a thorough interview, all these different questions.
That's a different story. Yeah, that's not gut though.
And every time my gut's always been right. Like, but I'm not a hiring manager, so in the end, it's hiring manager's decision. I just give my feedback, but my gut's always been right. When they didn't listen to me and they went with their decision, guess what? Within 3 months or 6 months, we had to fill the role again because person wasn't producing them. I told you, but it's like. I meant, like, I don't mean like the minute they walk in. No.
Okay, that's a different story. You're using data. That's the thing.
Talking to them, having a proper conversation. Interviews are nerve-wracking. It's not. You can't assess the candidate when they walk in. No,
and it's terrible. So basically, stop doing it. Stop stealing people's time, because that's what it is. It's stealing people's time.
It is,
and that's it. Just respect people's time.
You know, if you want to do it, be willing to pay for it. Be willing to pay them for the time. Stop doing it. It's not a good practice. It's not good for your company, brand. It's not good for the candidate. It's just not a good overall. No. The best way to sum it up is Paula wrote this comment on my post today, and she said it's unethical. And that's the best way I can sum it up. This topic, it is unethical practice. So let's be ethical and let's put ourselves in candidate's shoes, and let's imagine us being a candidate and would we want to do this work for free, because it is free work.
For sure.
So thank you for tuning in. We will be back on Thursday. Not sure what the topic.
No, we have a guest. We do have a guest. We have Vivian Aqua is joining us to talk about amplified DEI.
Okay, perfect. So we do have a guest. We'll be back on Thursday, 12:30, right here live. Join the discussion, or you can catch the replay by simply clicking on my LinkedIn profile, or you can catch it on YouTube channel, Angel Superhero. So we will see you guys on Thursday. And until then, have a great day. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.